Lonnie and Marie Smith at a barbecue on a summer's day. An ordinary couple on an outing, except that Lonnie has Alzheimer's and cannot do much on his own. His wife Marie cares for his needs.
Put your legs in front of you, please. Lonnie, bring your legs this way, please.
Kitty Hermitage was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Jeff, her husband of half a century, is now also her carer. This is Hortensia Woodruff, my mother, feisty, rebellious, fun-loving, and in her 20s. And this is her in her 70s, when she had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I cared for her until her death, and by then she hardly knew me.
When you look after somebody with dementia, you have to wear two hats. One, the Florence Nightingale cap of compassion, looking after every one of their physical and mental needs. The other is the warrior helmet, battling your way, finding out what services and benefits are available.
We have been together for 36 years. We met at a party in Hampstead and eventually we got married. He was diagnosed in early spring 1998, and he was diagnosed because he must have worried about not remembering things, and he went to his GP himself. He didn't actually even tell me. I felt quite devastated. I knew that as you approach old age, you have to expect maybe your health breaking down and, you know, bits and pieces going by the wayside. But this is the one thing that never thought would happen. It didn't enter my mind at any point. Well, you have to brush your teeth. You can't go out like that. He was still working. He was still doing his relief portering. And he was quite able to maintain a certain amount of independence. He used to go and get his papers. He used to still go to the pub and do the few things that he was doing in the neighborhood at the time, you know, go to work and manage to stay there for another almost 2 years, you know. Until the people that he worked for realized that there was something quite drastically wrong. Shall I do the buttons up? Lonnie lost his job. I knew that he was at home on his own all the time, which wasn't something that I was too happy about. He really needed someone there, if not all of the time, but most of the time. He showed sign of being very confused at that point. I hadn't really realized it because when you're working, you know, you go home and you're busy with preparing a meal in the evening, then you do the washing up and watch a bit of television together, and then you go to bed, and then, you know, the next day starts again. But you don't realize, you don't see all the little signs that you see when you are actually 24 hours, you know, a day together, which I did during the holidays, obviously. That's when I decided that maybe it was the time to give up work and, you know, stay around.
When you were still working, did you not think of having help so that you could carry on working?
No, I did not know that you could get help every day of the week, for instance, because really I didn't have the knowledge to make the decision.
We need to reassure people that they don't have to do this by themselves. There are lots of services out there that can help them to manage this. I think your first protocol, if you think that somebody who you're looking after or your partner is suffering from any form of dementia, is your GP, who would then either, if they're a GP practice, that will do the assessment themselves, they will do it, or they will send you to a psychogeriatrician. There's a CPN service, which is the community psychiatric nurse, who will come out and give you advice and tell you how to manage behaviours. There are places like day centres, respite care home, short breaks which are given by such services as Crossroads, and a variety of other services that are out there. So at the end of it all, although it may feel very much that you're on your own, I think we need to reassure people that they don't have to do this on their own.
My mother came to Netherwoods, a day centre specialising in the care of people with dementia. It was my lifesaver. Of course, her condition didn't get better, but at least it gave her a chance of socialising with other people, and it gave me a welcome break. Many people don't know that such centres exist, and others are worried that by sending their relatives there, they might be neglecting them. Take my advice. If you have one near you, grab it with both hands. Lonnie comes here twice a week.
The first time that Lonnie went to Netherwood, when we saw him going on the bus with all these other people, we both cried. We found it really hard. We found it terribly tough, because this man who looks much younger than he is, and who had been a very lively person, you know, to see him reduced to walking onto this bus and being sort of shepherded into his seat and so on, it was really not a very happy experience for us. And then you get used to it. But sometimes, even now, you get sort of pangs when you see him. You sort of are taken aback, really.
It is an emotional time. It's dependent. A lot of carers might feel that, why can't I cope? Am I pushing them away? Should I really be making these decisions? So when they do start attending the service, it's our way that we can start working with the carer to support them, so that they can start working through their emotions and be content in the knowledge to know that your dependent is safe and being cared for, without feeling guilty about it. Because there are services out that will allow you to do these things. And I think we always work from the side of it that if you're contented and happy, you can spend quality time with your dependent. Because the one thing that seems to be happening with our carers is they're becoming quite stressed, and that is when they find it harder to cope. And the feedback that's come back from carers is because they've had that time out, they can now cope with a lot more situations. Because carers, unfortunately, sometimes by the time they've been referred to the centre, they've now come to the end of their tether.
I think very importantly is that people see that the place where the person's coming to is conducive to care. It needs to be somewhere where you walk in and you think, well, oh good, I wouldn't mind coming here myself, because the atmosphere is right, the decor is right, and the people who you meet are right. And that's about people being made to feel welcome, free to come whenever they want to. So those are issues about when a carer is looking for a place, whether it's a daycare placement or a residential placement.
It is his social life there. He meets other people, both staff and other people who are in the same situation as he is. And I think it's very important for him, because he was a very sociable person. And to be here with me most of the time, just the two of us, must be very limiting, as it is for me.
You're not just putting somebody in a day centre as the terminology that sometimes you'd hear carers use. Whereas to us, a day centre is somewhere people come in order to basically have a different day from the one they have at home.
What colour would you like?
And the carer's role in that is to make sure that the service that we are offering is provided and that the person they care for is getting that service.
This is Jeff. His wife, Kitty, has Alzheimer's. She used to visit the day centre regularly, but her condition has slowly deteriorated and has recently moved into full-time care.
Well, we've been married since 1951, 52 years ago. She had been slightly forgetful and not quite as bright as usual. And at the time I was very ill, and I noticed that she was like this, and I asked for a doctor to see her. And they all said, yes, this is just old age, nothing very much to worry about. Then it got worse, and then it took 6 months for the doctors to decide that, in fact, she had what I strongly suspected was, in fact, Alzheimer's.
Do you feel she was diagnosed late?
Yes. The only treatment, apparently, that was available was a drug, Aricept, which was supposed to delay the progress of to slow up the progress of the disease. And the later we started on it, obviously, the less effect it had. So I think we lost some 6 months when the doctor did not positively diagnose Alzheimer's, and therefore he was unable to prescribe the appropriate drug.
What would be the pointers? What would you tell people they ought to do in order to get help?
Well, if they're used to dealing with social welfare departments or one sort or another, we'll go to them as soon as possible. I probably left it rather too late. I could have gone much earlier, because I thought that I could cope on my own and do that, but it was only when things got tough that friends rallied round and gave me addresses and names and lines of approach to get the help that was available. We've had people getting up in the morning, which was essential, bathing, dressing, and putting to bed in the evening, those two things. Meals on Wheels were excellent. They were reliable, and the staff were most helpful. I'd say, well, I'm going out for a few minutes and I'll put the door on the latch if you do arrive, and they'd come in, put the thing ready for me to do.
The social worker that came here to see us when we moved here was excellent. She came and assessed Lonnie's needs and then returned and assessed my needs, and she's been very supportive and very efficient. And the OTs have been very good. Lonnie went through a period in which he wasn't walking, and they have been excellent. They came, looked at the place, put in place equipment, which has been a great help to me. I had a physiotherapist to come and assess him as well. I've had really good support all around, I must say.
As well as all your other roles, you have to be a strategist. You are always on a damage limitation exercise. You must be one step ahead of the game. I'm not pretending it's easy, but one way to minimize the next crisis is to have information. And one great pool of knowledge is your local Alzheimer's carers group. I went to the one in Swiss Cottage, and Marie Smith goes there too.
I would say that it is very helpful. You hear how people cope. People have different strategies. And also, we must not forget that everybody who is in this situation, the carer and the person who is cared for, they have a special relationship going there, which is never the same for two people. Because I must tell you that I have a theory that the carer is the real expert here. Yeah? You hear stories and it helps you to sort of judge what you are doing with your own situation, and maybe also help you sometime to find new solutions, And it took me quite a while to understand that unless I put him to bed, he wouldn't get into bed, because his brain wasn't really telling him to come to bed, but he was possibly very tired. People see things in different ways, so the slant is different for each of us. So I think all in all, it could be a helpful experience, really.
Lonnie is now incontinent. How did you cope with it at the beginning?
You do not expect it. You know that it's a possibility on the horizon, but when it actually happens, it happens in a way that you possibly didn't envisage. When we used to go out, it was the problem. It became a problem. Because although I used to say, do you want to go to the toilet? And sometimes I used to take him either to coffee bars or to pubs and show him to the gentlemen's toilets. He used to go in, and I don't think he did anything really there. Maybe because he didn't understand what I was saying. And when he used to come out and we used to go about our business, he used to wet himself. And I didn't expect that to happen that way. I don't know what notion I had of this happening, but it was a very traumatic passage that. And then I had to accept that this was happening, and then I had to buy, I started buying incontinent pads and sort of put them on and go from there. And then we had the incontinence nurse coming in and talking to me and so on. But his incontinence is more because he doesn't recognize the stimulus. It's not due to weakness of the bladder or anything like that. He just does not recognize the stimulus.
One thing I do find important, or a matter of some importance, is the need for the carer, or the person such as myself, to be informed of all the developments and the facilities, things that are available to him. You tend to have to find them out for yourself. They don't just come to you. And I've now got to the stage that I've got all the things like taxi cards and bus passes and all these other things. But all the help that you can get, a lot of care, there are so many things that you can get, both financial support, information, medical information, things like that. You do have to sort them out yourself. And the more help that can be offered that way, the more you get, it makes life much, much better if you can get lots and lots of information.
When you first become a carer, you think you can cope alone. You can't, and what is more, you shouldn't. It is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It is actually good caring. It also gives your relative a chance to see other faces, even if it is for a short time. Marie uses a service called Crossroads. A volunteer comes every Tuesday morning for 3 hours to sit with Lonnie, while she has a chance to go out and do some shopping.
Are you all right? Okay, yes, sir. Yeah. I'm going shopping and meeting a friend. Are you okay?
It's all right.
Yes?
No problem. Yeah.
You have my number, so if you need anything, you can call me.
Oh,
Lonnie, I'm going out now. I'm going to meet a friend.
Okay, bye now.
Love you. See you later.
Say bye.
Bye. If I want to be truthful, my life is not normal at the moment, really. I do not do the things I would like to do, and I do lots of things that I would not do where circumstances be different. But the normality maybe comes from keeping a framework going, and we have contacts with people outside, whether it is through shopping or whatever. Keeping a routine, maintaining contact with friends and family, obviously, so that we can at least have a sense of continuity. The rest is really very much chores, you know. The day is quite taken up by, they're all very small things and they don't seem to amount too much, but by the time you add them all up, they take up an awful lot of your time and energy.
I found organizing a rota of volunteers extremely helpful. Remember, your loved one will suffer dementia for the rest of his or her life. I even included my children amongst the volunteers. We played Little Red Riding Hood and in a basket put all the goodies they and my mother liked to eat. And while they had a meal together, having a lovely time, I could get on with things that needed doing in her house. When the time comes to think of residential care, you're guilt-ridden. You feel you're letting your relative down. I thought about this a lot. And then I decided that if my mother had needed open heart surgery, nobody would have expected me to carry out the operation. Well, this was the same thing. Taking care of somebody with dementia for the rest of their lives is tantamount to major surgery. That was the job of the specialists, and I had to hand over.
People learning to let go is that emotional tie, that thinking. Also, there's some sense where it's about nobody else can care for that person as well as I do. Well, nobody can love them as much as you do, but they can care for their physical needs as well as you do. And it's to actually get people to be confident about that. And also to actually look at it and think, yes, there is life after dementia.
I depended on her very much for companionship. And I miss it. You can do nothing about it. But all I can say is be thankful that I had a long time when she was there. But it's come to the end of the line for me as far as relations with her mentally just don't exist anymore. For somebody who's been very bright and knew about music and literature, theatre, ballet, and then to suddenly to find in front of your eyes that it's gone, it meant a terrific loss to me. I would do anything if there was medical care that could be given to bring her back to something approaching normality. I would have gone for it. But I had to give that idea up some time ago. I cannot bear the thought of her mind going with the body staying comparatively fit. I mean, she still eats, drinks, sleeps well, but nothing is happening in the head. It is the end of the worries, really, and I don't see a way out of it. I've got to the end of the line. There's very little more that I can do other than make sure that she receives the nursing care.
This is a progressive disease, and therefore it's not like saying expect a nosebleed or expect tummy ache or something like that. There is something new almost every day, something that may be the same for everybody or may be different for everybody. I don't know. I have no universal knowledge of this, but the advice I would give is be flexible in your approach. You have to be very pragmatic. Never be too surprised, and maybe reading about the condition may help some people in recognizing the signs.
My caring journey was often a bumpy one. I had some great hits, but also many misses. Sometimes I was totally at sea, particularly at first. Hopefully, looking at the experience of others who have gone a little bit further will make your road smoother.